Welcome to the Catalyst Sale Podcast. This is a continuation in the series we started earlier this week, focused on specific topics that we're either thinking about today or will be thinking about over the next couple of weeks. Today, I've got Myra on. We're going to talk about collaboration. Myra, how are you?
I am hanging in there, just like everyone else is, I hope.
Awesome. So, what is collaboration?
Yeah, so when you, this is an interesting topic, Rick, and I love that you tagged me for this. So when you think about collaboration, it's about being able to work on a deliverable, whatever that is, right? Whether it could be something as like, I don't know, putting a meal together, or it could be something as like creating new software or new learning. And so collaboration is about working with a person or a team of persons to create something, plain
Awesome.
and
What
simple.
what are some common mistakes we make when thinking about collaboration?
I think the biggest mistake that people tend to make I guess all of us, I'm going to include myself, when we think about collaboration is we think that we need to start it on our own first. Whatever it is that we're trying to do, we need to start it on our own, and then we have to tap people, and we need to be very strategic about who we tap on to help us. And so we look at collaboration as asking for help, when that's not the case. Collaboration is about creating together.
And why do we make these mistakes?
I think a lot of it has to do around the sense of ownership, right? So we feel that if we're not the first to deliver on something or the first to come up with that idea, that we're going to miss out on an opportunity. And so let me give you a perfect example. So um, I had been working on Torrance Learning. I had this great idea. I'm like, we're going to create an Alexa skill, and I'll just put everything out there, and then everyone will work on it, right? And what I found very quickly was that wasn't the right approach, right? It wasn't. It was more about, let me bring in the people who want to work on this. Ask who wants to work on this, right? And then pitch the idea. I'm not directing the idea, I'm pitching the idea. I'm like, what do you guys think about this? And those who wanted to work on it were on board, and it evolved into something so much greater and so much better than I think I could have come up with had I been directive about, like, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And so I think I think the biggest mistake we make is about not being flexible.
So, how can we avoid making these mistakes?
So I think the key word here is avoid, right? So I think it's about being conscious about how we're addressing things and how we're thinking about things. So if we're thinking about, like, I don't know, let's say you're a perfect example, with this podcast is, you had the idea, and then you tapped on other people to talk about. And just when we were briefing, you asked me, like, hey, is this a good topic? If not, we can change it. I think you just by doing that one bit of just checking in, right, to see, like, hey, is this even a good idea, actually helps out with trying to figure out, like, how you can collaborate a lot better with people.
Awesome. And how does this change when thinking about collaboration in the context of working from home or remote work, as many of us are going through that transition? And sometimes it's the first time we're doing it.
Yeah, so I think the work from home thing is new to a lot of people. I've worked from home for about 9 years. I had a 1 year break in there to for a project where I was on site, and I think it's easy to fall into this, like, working in a silo um, when you're working from home, right? Because if you're used to being able to walk over to someone, tap on them, and talk, you can't do that anymore. And so um, I think in the context of working from home or remote work, you need to make a conscious effort to virtually tap someone, right? Like you now need to use tools that are at your disposal to actually get people involved. Like one of my favorite things to do, and I don't think I've ever shared this story, but Anne Rollins is my BFF. We are best buds. And a few years ago I think it was 2017, 2016, I was like, "Hey, Ann, do you want to write a book?" Right? And she was like, "Sure, let's write a book. What are we writing a book on?" And we brainstormed. And my favorite, and I call it the Almighty, is Google Docs. Like that is my favorite collaboration tool. So we just literally got on a Google Hangout and we spent a couple hours and we wrote a book in a weekend collaboratively. Like I'm telling you, we fired that sucker up and we were both typing together and we banged out that book in a weekend. Um, and we published it. We self-published this on you can get it on Amazon through Kindle Unlimited and stuff like that. But it was a different way of us working together, right, to achieve a goal.
Very cool. I'm going to go off script here a little bit, and I'm going to ask you: are there other tools that you have adopted? Whether so, you talk about Google Docs, and heck, we use a Google Doc for our running Costco list, so that everybody can make sure we're adding things to the list as it goes along. So we're collaborating as a family to build our the grocery list. But are there other tools beyond Google Docs that you like using that can help support collaboration?
Yeah, and so and I need to apologize for all the noise in the background. If you guys can hear that, I'm not sure. It's garbage pickup day. Um, so other tools, yeah. So I can tell you, I love FaceTime. So I'm an iPhone user. I'm a Mac user, so I love FaceTime because I can FaceTime on whether I'm on my MacBook Pro, on my iMac, on my iPhone, on my iPad. That's a great collaboration tool because I like to be able to see people when we're collaborating because facial expressions can tell you a lot. So you can be like talking through an idea and the other person may be like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. But their face will tell you something different. So I love any kind of virtual video messaging platform. So like Zoom, Google Hangouts is a favorite, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger. Those are great for the video portion of it. And then for document writing, I would say hands down, Google Docs is like the best of the best because you can actually collaborate, real time and see what, you can edit stuff together. I think for other tools like large file sharing, like if you have a large amount of files that you need to share, so Dropbox is always a favorite. Amazon has Amazon Drive. Microsoft has Microsoft, I think it's Drive, OneDrive. OneDrive, you actually get more storage than you do with the other platforms. And I think and then for photo sharing, you still have a bunch of different platforms out there, but you can just create an album right on your phone and share it with people so they can get pictures that they need.
Awesome. How does the idea or concept of collaboration change when thinking of it from three different perspectives? One would be teams, those inside our organization who we are working with, those outside of our organization, so customers, and then ourself. So both teams, internal, customers, external, and then ourself.
All right, so I'm going to keep it real because we are living in mad times right now. And so for posterity, right, let's talk about COVID-19, coronavirus. It has us all in isolation. And I think that when we're collaborating now, I think one of the most important things that we really need to think about is like the person on the other end. They may have accepted the opportunity to collaborate with you, but they may need more of a social context before you jump into any collaboration, right? Like just have conversations. I think right now people need a platform to kind of just like unleash their baggage before they can get into the headspace of actually working on something with you. And I shared with you, Mike, when we were just talking before, that I had a virtual meeting with my team on Friday, and I was just not in the mood for it. I was not in the mood to talk about anything that I've been working on. I just did not. I was just in a really pissy mood, and I told them. I was real with them. I was like, listen, I am not in the mood for this. I'm not in the mood to talk about any tools that I'm creating because it really does not matter right now. It's not my priority. But I will do this with you guys because we have to get work done. And I think it's about being empathetic, right? So when you're working with your teams, is allowing them to also share, like, if they're not in the mood right now, man, they have a lot more that they're dealing with at home. Um, and just trying to adjust to this whole remote thing if they've never worked remotely before. When you're working with your customers, I can tell you I spent about an hour with one of my customers, external customers. Just she needed someone to talk to, because I work with higher ed, and so faculty, and they're all moving to virtual, and some of them have resisted for so long going virtual, and now they're having to get virtual in like under a week, right? So there's a continuation of education, and she was just sharing how she starts every class with what are the challenges and what are the changes that are happening in the world right now, and allows students to have those discussions, right? And maybe that's something that I think everyone should adopt, whether you're working with customers, you're working with your teams, you're working with a peer. It's like, talk through some of that, because I think it helps you get in a headspace to actually work. And for yourself, be real with people. Like, we don't have to put on a fake face, right, to be effective. We are human beings, and so I think that we need to be honest with everyone. If you're not okay, it's okay to say you're not okay. I was sharing with you, Mike, I'm losing my mind. I'm home. I live in Seattle by myself. I'm in an apartment by myself. My family's all distributed across Puerto Rico and the U.S., and we're very far from each other. And so it's when you're not okay, it's okay to say you're not okay, right? And so um, I think we need to like drop as you put it, the Instagram faces of everything's okay. And it's okay to have a bad day, whether we're going through a pandemic or not, right? It's okay to have a bad day. Doesn't mean that once all of this is like figured out and things go back to some form of normalcy, that then you have to put on that face again and be like game face all the time. No, like, it's okay to have a bad day. Um, and if you're collaborating with someone, I think letting them know that maybe you're not having the best day ever is important, because then you kind of set expectations, like, I may not deliver the best work right now because I am not feeling this, right? So I think that's all important.
Awesome. Usually I ask if others would like to hear us continue the conversation. I'll have Myra back on. I'm going to go ahead and say that I just want to continue the conversation. So we'll have Myra back on at a future discussion. Myra, when others are thinking about collaboration or are interested in finding tools and resources, are there any places that you'd point them? And we'll include a link to yours and Anne's book in the show notes. Are there anything else that I should include in the show notes for folks?
Yeah, so I keep a Pinterest board, and I'll send you that link, Mike, so you can include it. In the Pinterest board, I call it free and low cost tools. And in there, because I'm always researching tools, I will capture tools that are free to use or free to try. So I have some great resources up in there. And ask your peers, right? We have a Twitter chat on Mondays for Myra Monday, and I post a question. You can totally disrupt a Myra Monday and just ask the whole group, like, hey, I'm looking for a tool that does XYZ, and that's totally fine, right? Because I think we need to tap into our networks more and more, and I would love to see that network grow, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are struggling to find resources, and I am not a single source of like truth. I don't think I am I'm like a fraction of a source of truth, right? I think that it is the greater community. So LinkedIn, posting on LinkedIn, asking a question, right now, people are so collaborative on LinkedIn and willing to offer help, willing to work with you on things. And I think it's because we now have more space. We're not overbooked anymore. And so now we're trying to fill our time. So now is a great time to tap into that network.
Myra, thanks for being both a great curator, creator, and collaborator. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. Stay safe, everyone.